Hey, what's going on guys? Welcome back, and in this episode we're going to be continuing with our enemies and we're going to be linking them to like player rewards and things like that. So we're going to be taking the pickups we created in a previous video, we're going to get the enemies to drop those, and then we're also going to be setting up things like XP and all these other different types of rewards to give feedback to the player. So let's get straight to it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, if you head over to your event sheet, and then all we're going to do here is going to add two new global variables, and this is just going to be the XP and then also the XP needed for the level. If you do have the paid version, I would highly recommend setting this up in like a dictionary. But anyways, right click, global variable, call this XP, we can keep it a number, and then we can just duplicate this and just call this XP needed. We can keep this on 0, and we can make the initial needed XP, we can just set something like 5. Okay, so we're going to be using this XP for like a leveling up system, so what we can do is we can just go down here, add a new group, and we'll call this leveling system. And then for now we can add an event, we'll say system, compare two values, and then we can compare if XP is greater or equal to, and then we can just say XP needed. So if we exceed the XP needed, we can then trigger the leveling event. We want to right click again, and we just want to add a condition, and we just want to say do this once. So trigger once whilst true, and this just makes sure that we don't keep, giving levels. On top of this, we want to right click, and we want to add a new function, and we'll call this level up. We can put this at the top of the leveling system if we'd like, and then in this event here, we want to add an action, function, and then we want to call level up. So it's just a nice way to separate this. On top of this, if you just head back to the top, we need to add another variable, and we're just going to call this level. We'll set this initially at 0. Okay guys, so real quick, in order for this to all work, we want to actually start saving our values now. So one thing I would recommend is, I have a dedicated video on this, on creating a save and load system. I would recommend going and watching that and then coming back. Alternatively, I can just quickly run through what I've just done now. So what you need to do is, you need to right click, you'd insert a local storage, and then here, so I have a save progress group here, and then what we're doing is we're checking if values exist. So for example, we have coins exist, and then we want to set that value to local storage.item value. You can do that for each of your different things, such as your level, all your different global variables. Then what you do is, so once you actually, call your save function, which we created a minute ago, you then want to local storage, and you want to set the value. So you want to set the key coins, and you want to set that back to the value. So that's just how you update this value. And then on the top, and then above this, what you'd have to do is, on your start of layout event, you want to actually check if these values exist. So you'd go local storage, and then for example, you'd check, does coin exist, does premium exist, things like that. If it does exist, that's when you would then call these. So when they do exist, you set the values, and when you save, you reset the values. And on top of this, all you'd have to then do is just find a way to actually call your save. So for example, we have a game over function here. So all you could do is you could then just go function, and then just call your save function, and you drag that above. You could also add a little wait real quick, so you could start a second wait just to make sure this gets called. So that's just a real quick summary of adding the save functions. I would highly recommend going and watching the save video, as I go into detail on how to actually set that up. But alternatively, you could just pause the screen and just copy these systems. Alright guys, so once you've implemented your save functions, we can go back to our level up, and what we can do is we can say local storage, we can set item, and then so for this one to set the level, so we'd say level, and then we'd set the value to level plus 1. Like this. We can paste this in, and then also, so we also want to set the XP, so we can set the XP, and then we'd set the XP to XP minus XP needed. So we're just resetting it back to what it was before. Alright guys, so once you've done that, we can head back to our game, and we can right click, and we're going to insert a new sprite. This is going to be our XP bar. I'm just going to fill this in with a colour. We can call this XP bar, and then we just want to put this on our URL layer, and we can set the size to something like 500 by 20. We can just drag this up to the top of the page for now, and again, you can make this look nicer, but I'm just trying to get this video done quickly, as there's a lot of systems to add today. So once you've done that, we can insert another sprite. This is just going to be like a key to show you've leveled up. So I'm literally just going to get a paintbrush, and I'm just going to write level up, something like this. I know it looks terrible, but it works for now. And then we can just call this level up sprite, something like that. And then this also needs to be on the UI layer. And then we can give this a little bit of a behavior, so we could give it a sign, and then we can set this to vertical. We can preview it here, and then we can set the period to like 1, and if we preview this, we just have a little level up. So tweak that if you'd like, but this is just something I thought you might want to add. Alright guys, so once you've done that, head back to your event sheet. We're going to go to the start of layout, and now we can set the width of the XP bar. So what we can do is we can add a new action. We'll say XP bar, set width, and then here we just want to say XP. We want to divide this by the XP needed, and then we want to times it by 500, which is the width we set for the bar. Alright, great guys, so this action here, this is what you'll then use for every time. So let's say you destroy an enemy, or you pick up XP, things like that. That's the action you want to attach to that to actually update the bar. Well, we're building on this in a moment when we actually tie all this into the enemy drops and things like that. Real quick, head down to your level system, and we just need to finish working on this. So what we need to do is we need to copy this event here, the XP. We want to say XP needed, and then we want to set the XP value to XP needed. And then we just want to time this by something like 1.5 or whatever you'd like. And that will then just keep increasing the actual XP needed. So now it sets the level to an extra level, resets the XP, and increases the XP needed. And then on top of this level up thing, so this is where you could then add all your different visual effects, if you want to pop things up or particles, stuff like that. We just added that quick level up sprite, so let's add this. We can just say level up sprite, and we can just set it to visible. We can add another action, we can say wait. We could wait something like 3 seconds, and then we can just set it back to not visible. So now when you level up, you'll see the level up, pop up, it'll move up and down a little bit, and then disappear. Feel free to add any other, other things, so particles could be cool, stuff like that. Alright guys, so that's it for the leveling system for now. We need to head over to our enemies area, and then we can right click, and we just want to add a new subgroup, and we'll call this destroy. And in here we can now tie everything together, so we can tie our XP, our level system, and then we can also set up, the drops and things like that. So first thing inside here, we need to actually say on destroyed, so we can say enemy. So again, select the enemies you've chosen. I've got this tomato enemy. We can say on destroyed, and then when we destroy an enemy, we want it to actually increase the XP. So we can add an action, system, we can set value, and we can just say XP, and we can just set it to XP plus 1, like this. So now we'll just gain 1 XP every time we destroy an enemy. And then if you have different enemy types, you could just duplicate this and change the values around. We also want to scroll back up, and this width action we added here, we want to copy this, and we just want to paste this in here. So we're also updating the XP bar. And then so instead of here, we could actually set to actually drop the pickups, right? So we could add an action, we could say system, create object, and we could say coin pickup. We could spawn this from the game layer, and then we can just say enemy. So whatever your enemy is called, .x, and then same in the y, but just .y. So that's how you'd go about making it so that, so for something like a simple coin, you could make it so that every enemy will drop a lot. But then if you wanted to have so we could have premium drops, health, things like that, you can then use a probability table, like a loot box sort of system, and then you could also have the chance to spawn rarer items. I also have created a separate video on this also, where we create a loot box system, and we use a probability table to actually decide which drops to spawn. So I'll put that up on the screen now as well, and so if you're curious about that, you could go watch that too. So yeah, I'd go watch that guys, or alternatively I can just quickly skim through this now. So you want to create a group, add a function random drop, you want to call that function every time you destroy your enemies, you'd head over to your game, insert a new object, you want to search advanced random, you'd then head back to your event sheet, on start of layout, and then what you'd do is you'd go advanced random, you want to create a probability table, call it enemy drops, whatever you'd like, and then you'd also add an entry for each of those. So you'd once again advanced random, add an entry, XP for example, and then the weight is just so you can see that as the rarity. So the higher the number, the higher the chance, the lower, more rare it is. You could then add some local variables to the actual group. So you'd have your random number, so this is what it'll pick, for the object. You have the threshold, so this is to decide, if it's within this number sort of thing. And then on top of this, you'd do a drop type. So that's going to be the actual outcome of what you get. And then inside your function real quick, so you'd set the random number we added to a random number. So you go random from 0 to 10. The threshold's 8. So then what you'd do is, so you'd say if the random number is greater or equal to the threshold, so if it's 9 or 10 basically, so that's a 20% chance that it will then do a drop. Then you could say set the drop type. So this drop type's a string. And then what we're doing is we're going to set that to the advanced random dot weighted by name. So that's using the weights. And then enemy drops, which is what we named it at the top. So basically it's saying then pull one of those from here, and then these right here, then these are the checks. So you'd add a bunch of sub events, and then we're saying if this drop type equals one of these, which is the names that you added at the top, And then this is where you then add your create objects. So for example here, if it was health, I can give you a quick example. We would just say system, create object. You'd use your health pickup, and then just like the coin, you'd spawn it on the game layer. And then you just spawn it on enemy tomato.x or whatever you named your enemies .y. Alright guys, one thing I just realised I forgot to mention as well is, so if you just go to your level up function as well, just make sure you also add a system set value. So you want to set the value to 0 as well as the actual local storage. Alright guys, so one more thing we need to add, and again this is unfortunate because families would make this a lot easier, but basically for each of your enemies, we also need to calculate the last dead enemy's X and Y position. So if you had a family, so if you have the paid version, you would create a families and you could just say enemy X, enemy Y, and you could use that to calculate. So if you just have one enemy type, that's fine, but that's just something to keep in mind. Basically what we're going to need to do is we need to create two new variables, last enemy X and last enemy Y. We want to head back to your enemy destroyed event, and all we need to do is add an action, system, set value. So we've got last enemy X, and then for this I would say enemy tomato.x. We can copy and paste this, and then we just do the same with Y. And then if we scroll down to our random drops, we can now, instead of spawning them on the enemy tomato or whatever, we can now just spawn them on the last enemy X and the last enemy Y. Alright guys, so that should be everything here. Hopefully that's not been too confusing. I know I've been back and forth a little bit with this one. It's just difficult to try and, clearly combine all these different systems. And I've also already extensively gone through some of these systems in standalone videos. Anyways, let's test this, guys. So if we click debug project, and as we can see, so we have 0 coins here. Our enemies are now dropping. We can pick them up. The XP is increasing. So as you can see, we've got 2 XP. We've leveled up. It resets the XP. We level up again. And as you can see, it's also now dropping our premium pickups at random. They're all dropping. We've got the nice level up, feedback there, which of course you could make look better. Alright, so that's it for this one, guys. We've got the XP and leveling system integrated. Our enemies now drop our pickups. We've got a random loot system where it also drops premium pickups. And we've now got save and loading working. So I hope you enjoyed. I know it was a bit all over the place, but I'll see you in the next one, and take care, guys.